Julian doesn't know his kratom from Kentucky Fried Chicken, grumbled Dr. Robbins. I recognized that paradox the chink was speaking of. It's inside us as well as all around us. I went into psychiatry with the desire to help set people free, but I soon learned that man is stuck with a lot of conflicting behavioral and emotional traits that have a genetic basis. We have built-in contradictions. There are standard equipment in all models. No matter how much people long to be free, even to the point of valuing freedom over happiness, an aversion to liberty is right there in their DNA. For eons of evolutionary time, our DNA has been whispering into the ears of ourselves that we are, each one of us, the most precious things in the universe, and that any action that entails the slightest risk to us may have consequences of universal importance. Be careful, get comfortable, don't make any waves, whispers the DNA. Conversely, the yearning for freedom, the risky belief that there is nothing to lose and nothing to gain, is also in our DNA. But it's of much more recent evolutionary origin, according to me. It has arisen during the past couple of million years, during the rapid increase in brain size and intellectual capacity associated with our becoming human. But the desire for security, the will to survive, is of much greater antiquity. For the present, the conflicting yearnings in the DNA generate a basic paradox that in turn generates the character nothing, if not contradictory, of man. To live fully, one must be free, but to be free, one must give up security. Therefore, to live, one must be ready to die. How's that for a paradox? But since the genetic bent for freedom is comparatively recent, it may represent an evolutionary trend. We may yet outgrow our overriding obsession to survive. That's why I encourage everyone to take chances, to court danger, to welcome anxiety, to flaunt insecurity, to rock every boat and always cut against the grain. By pushing it, goosing it along whenever possible, we may speed up the process by which the need for playfulness and liberty becomes stronger than the need for comfort and security. Then that paradox that the chink sees holding the show together may lose its equilibrium. What then, Mr. Chink, what then? Dr. Robbins scratched his mustache with the stem of his pullover, thereby simultaneously satisfying itch and winding watch. With time, the central problem facing mankind, such efficiency, had to be admired. Sissy, soothing her thumbs, smiled. She liked that baby-faced junior shrink. In some ways, he even reminded her a little of the chink. In other ways, dressed and demeanor, he reminded her of Julian. She supposed that he would be pleased by the former comparison, waxed by the latter. So she said, "That's fascinating. Not the kind of talk I expected to run into at the Goldman Clinic, I'll tell you. You think a bit like the chink yourself." "Is that so?" "Yes, you do. Although I wouldn't dare to presume to speak for the chink, it sounds to me like you're talking about the same paradox, or at least a similar one. Well, to try to get back to your question, the chink sees in the natural world a paradoxical balance of supreme order and supreme disorder. But man has a pronounced bias for order. He not only refuses to respect or even accept the disorder in nature, in life, he shuns it, rages against it, attacks it with orderly programs, and in so doing, he perpetuates instability. "Hold on a minute," called Dr. Robbins. He propped his Oxford cloth-shirted back against the stone bench upon which Sissy was sitting. "Let me make sure I'm with you. Wine made me fuzzy. You say the chink says the bias for order leads to instability?" "Right," said Sissy. "For several reasons. First, worshipping order and hating disorder automatically shoves great portions of nature and life into a hateful category. Did you know that the center of the earth is red-hot liquid covered with a hard crust, and that crust is not a single unified layer, but a whole jumbled series of shifting plates? These plates are about 60 miles thick and very plastic. They appear and disappear. They move around and buckle and bump into each other like epileptic dominoes. New mountains and new islands. Once in a while, new continents are being created and old ones destroyed. New climates are being formed and old ones altered. The whole thing is in flux. Existing arrangements are temporary and constantly in threat of disruption. This whole big city of New York could be sucked into the earth or quick frozen or flattened or inundated at any second. The Chink says the man who feels smug in an orderly world has never looked down a volcano. Dr. Robbins appeared a tad disappointed. Maybe it was the sun heating the wine in his eyes. Yeah, I had a geology course in college, he mumbled. Geophysical turmoil is a reality, all right, but hardly a defense of disorder. I mean, cancer, cellular turmoil is a reality too, but that doesn't make it lovable or even acceptable. True, agreed Sissy. Her big digits had quieted down. They lolled upon her thighs like exhausted sea cows run ragged by some cowgirls of the deeps. True, that wasn't the Chink's point. He was saying simply that the vagrancies and violence of nature must be brought back into the foreground of social and political consciousness, that they have got to be embraced in any meaningful psychic renewal. Yeah, okay. But as for stability in general, primitive men enjoyed great stability. It blew my mind to hear the Chink say that, but now I can see that it was true. Primitive culture was diverse, flexible and completely integrated with nature at the level of the particular environment. Primitive man took from the land only what he needed, thus avoiding the hassles that result in modern economics from imbalances of scarcity and surplus. Hunting and gathering tribes worked only a few hours a week. To work more than that would have put a strain on the environment, with which they related symbiotically. It was only among mobile cultures, after the unfortunate domestication of animals, that surplus or result of overachievement led to potlatches and competitive feasts, orgies of conspicuous consumption and conspicuous waste, which attached to simple, healthy, effective economies the destructive elements of power and prestige. When that happened, stability was shattered. Civilization is a mutant beast that emerged from the shattered egg of primitive stability. Another thing about primitives. They deified forces of disorder as well as of order. In fact, the gods of wind and lava and lightning were often honored above the deities of more placid things, and not always out of fear. Still not satisfied, Dr. Robbins dragged his nails through the label on the empty wine bottle. Interesting, he said. Pretty interesting. But here you've got the Chink praising disorder on the one hand and stability on the other. Exactly, answered Sissy. Disorder is inherent in stability. Civilized man doesn't understand stability. He's confused it with rigidity. Our political and economic and social leaders drool about stability constantly. It's their favorite word next to power. Got to stabilize the political situation in Southeast Asia. Got to stabilize oil production and consumption. Got to stabilize student opposition to the government, and so forth. Stabilization to them means order, uniformity, control. And that's a half-witted and potentially genocidal misconception. No matter how thoroughly they control a system, disorder invariably leaks into it. Then the managers panic, rush to plug the leak, and endeavor to tighten the controls. Therefore, totalitarianism grows in viciousness and scope, and the blind pity is rigidity isn't the same as stability at all. True stability results when presumed order and presumed disorder are balanced. A truly stable system expects the unexpected, is prepared to be disrupted, waits to be transformed. As a psychiatrist, wouldn't you say that a stable individual accepts the inevitability of his death? Likewise, a stable culture, government, or institution has built into it its own demise. It is open to change, open even to being overthrown. It is open, period. Gracefully open. That's stability. That's alive. Makes sense. Makes good sense, agreed Dr. Robbins, upon whose girl next door face a wine-stained mustache made little sense at all. Dr. Robbins' mustache was the ruins of a lost city of hair discovered by archaeologists in the Bald Mountains, or Dr. Robbins' mustache was a fur coat worn by an eccentric widow to a picnic in Phoenix, Arizona on the 4th of July, or Dr. Robbins' mustache was an obscene phone call to a deaf nun. Yeah, agreed Dr. Robbins, tugging at his mustache as if even he didn't believe it. I can fit that into my jigsaw puzzle, but time, Sissy? Where do time and clockworks connect to this? The chink didn't exactly say how they connected, but I think I have got it figured out. Sissy pulled a scrap of paper from a jumpsuit pocket. A physicist named Edgar Lipworth wrote this, she explained. He writes, "The time of physics is defined and measured by a pendulum. Whether it is the pendulum of a grandfather's clock, the pendulum of the Earth's rotation around the sun, or the pendulum of the precessing electron in the nuclear magnetic field of the hydrogen maser. Time, therefore, is defined by periodic motion. That is, by motion related to a point moving uniformly around a circle. Got that?" "Sure," said Dr. Robbins. "And there's the pendulum of the heart beating, the pendulum of the lungs breathing, the pendulum of music finding its beat. Those two, right, okay. Then civilized man is infatuated with the laws he finds in nature, clings almost frantically to the order he sees in the universe. So he has based the symbologies, the psychological models with which he hopes to understand his life upon his observations of natural law and order. Pendulum time is orderly time, the time of a lawfully uniform universe, the time of cyclic synthesis. That's okay as far as it goes, but pendulum time is not the whole time. Pendulum time doesn't relate to trillions of the moves and acts of existence. Life is both cyclic and arbitrary, but pendulum time relates only to the part that's cyclic. Although the manner in which we relate to pendulum time is often arbitrary too, threw in Dr. Robbins. He thought of the arbitrary dial of a clock and how certain arbitrary numbers on that dial, such as 9 and 5 and noon and midnight, have been left dog-eared by undue emphasis. "Yes, I reckon so," said Sissy. "But the point is, although a lot of our experience occurs outside of or relates only artificially and tenuously to pendulum time, we still envision time only in pendulum terms, in terms of continuous, compulsory rotation. Even the clock people's hourglass, it wasn't designed for perfect accuracy or anything, but it was modeled upon an orderly flow. It clung to the frayed edges of a time its builders wanted to transcend. The catfish pool came closer to measuring the other time of life, but its limitations... Sissy?" "Yes?" Dr. Robbins had spotted Dr. Goldman at the French doors again. "What is the chink's clockworks like?" he asked. "Ha ha," laughed Sissy. "Criminy! You wouldn't believe it. It's just a bunch of junk. Garbage can lids and old saucepans and lard tins and car fenders all wired together way down in the middle of the Siwash cave. Every now and then this contraption moves. A bat will fly into it, a rock will fall on it, an updraft will catch it, a wire will rust through, or it'll just move for no apparently logical reason, and one part of it will hit against another part, and it'll go bonk, or boing, and that bonk, or that boing will echo throughout the caverns. It might go bonk or boing 5 times in a row, then a pause, then one more time. After that, It might be silent for a day or two, maybe a month. Then the clock will strike again, say twice. Following that, there could be a silence for an entire year or just a minute or so. Then, boing! So loud you nearly jump out of your skin. And that's the way it goes. Striking freely, crazily, at odd intervals. Sissy closed her eyes, as if listening for the distant bonk or poink, and Dr. Robbins, ignoring Dr. Goldman's gestures from the French doors, seemed to be listening too. They listened. They heard. They were assured then, together, the psychiatric intern and his patient, that there was a rhythm, a strange, unnoted rhythm, that might or might not be beating out their lives for them, for each of us. Because to measure time by the clockworks is to know that you are moving towards some end, but at a pace far different from the one you might think.